Understand? But at the same time, you look at the slavery in itself. Even white people, there's a country, I think you know Ireland. Yes. Do you know what the Irish were slaves? And they were slaves to the British. Abelungu bonke. But the British enslaved the Irish.
So slavery was a practice of the time.
It was a practice of the time until the Prophet was born, and he abolished it. So those were cut up by our colonists when they came to the continent. They were carving them out into what we now have today. So the Moors, you must know about the history of the Moors. The Moors were the ones that conquered Spain for 700 years. The Moors were a black ethnic group from North Africa that went to Spain and ruled Spain for 781 years.
Bengali lava who were Muslims.
Yes, they were Muslim. Yeah, Muslim. They were the ones who brought Islam. They were the ones. Look, these guys were the ones who taught Europeans to even to take a bath. The Moors. So they were even taught how to bath and so forth. You understand? I mean, you still have Alhambra, the palace that the Moor kings built in modern day Spain, that is still there to this day. You understand? So when the Christian crusaders came to Spain, which then was called Andalusia by the Muslims, by the Moors, when they conquered them, Babalekela and Morocco, in present-day Morocco. And if you look geographically, Morocco and Spain are very close.
Very close.
So you run to the closest place you have. You go to Cape Town, Lucia. You understand? The closest, you understand? So now they ran to present-day Morocco. So hence the Moroccans are considered as the descendants of the Moors. But the Moors came from even present-day Sudan and present-day Egypt.
Is it true, Uti, like the original people of Egypt, they were black people?
Yeah, they were black.
Yeah.
Remember, Uti, post the demise of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we had Ama Khalifa in it. Then post the Khalifas, we had Ama Tabi'in and Tabi'in, and those guys were traveling.
Yeah.
Remember, Deen spread through it traveling Alababantu. You understand? They came into present-day North Africa. In fact, let's go back to the very Hijra. The first Hijra happened in when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told Muslims to run to Egypt. Run to Ethiopia. You'll meet the good king. So yakala lapho. Because as we speak, there's a family in Ethiopia, in Aksum, in an area called Aksum. They are called the Sharifs. They are direct descendants of Ganabi through a cousin Ujafar. Ujafar being the younger brother of Ali. You understand? The Sharifs are direct descendants. So the Muslims abafika at that time, abanyazang bahambe.
Yeah.
Others never returned back to the Prophet.
Because that thing is very important, Onashego, to point it out, because people are saying the Muslims, the Arab Muslims, they came and then they started killing Africans. But what I'm saying is this, as the Indo-Shawut, the first encounter between the Muslim Arabs, is important, and the Africans was through that king. It was a peaceful meeting.
Very peaceful. In fact, understand. But at the same time, you look at the slavery in itself. Even white people, there's a country, I think you know Ireland. Yes. Do you know what the Irish were slaves? And they were slaves to the British. Abelungu bonke. But the British enslaved the Irish.
So slavery was a practice of the time.
It was a practice of the time until the Prophet was born, and he abolished it. And they were slaves to the British. Abelungu bonke. But the British enslaved the Irish.
So slavery was a practice of the time.
It was a practice of the time until the Prophet was born, and he abolished it. You understand? Hence, the first encounter between Muslims and non-Muslims through the Najash was peaceful. You understand? That's why the Najash even himself told Jafar, who was leading that delegation, Uguti, the difference between Tina and Nani is this line. He drew a line on the floor. Uguti, that's the only difference. Uguti, we are brothers in faith at the end of the day. Because as much as you guys believe in Jesus, we also believe in Jesus. Ngoba thina sihlukana nama Christians ngoJesu ngokuthi thina sidazange ngapha crucified. You understand? That's what we're refusing. We're saying that he went to Allah and he's going to come back. But the Christians are saying that he was crucified, etc., etc., etc. That's why kula sihlukana khona.
Yeah.
But we share all the prophets. We believe in Abraham, we call him Ibrahim. We believe in Ishmael, we believe in David, Dawood, etc., etc.
And it's so strange that Muslims like South Africa, they don't know those things. But I mean, Islam, it's everywhere now.
No, Islam had to grow because of, look, there's so much similarities between our Islamic faith and isintu sethu esabantu abamnyama.
Ayichaze sha.
Umzekelo wokuqala ukuthwala abantu besifazane. Remember ukuthi ngesiZulu or any culture you can think of, ichichi, yini ichichi? Intombazane engakaghanwa, angithi? Yes. So ichichi will dress in a certain way to show ukuthi she is available for marriage. But once ashadwa, once she becomes somebody's wife, what is the first thing that happens? Ufake iduku. Ugqoka irogo elide. Uyavala. You understand? So mawuvakashele kuloyo muzi, once you see iduku ubona konke, so uyazi ukuthi I can't go there. Ngiyoshela la. You understand? Umfazi womuntu loyana. What does Islam say about that in as far as women is concerned? Cover. Vala ama-privates akho, because a woman's privacy umzimba wakho wonke. Zihloniphe. And this thing takes you again back to the very Bible. Go Matthew, I forgot, is it chapter 6 or what? It talks about the 5 levels of ubufebe. You understand? Adultery. Level 1, yamehlo. Islam says the same thing. You look, uyakhala, you approach, you eventually sleep with the person. You have committed levels and levels of adultery. You understand? Because the person is not covered. So Islam says the same thing. You'll have no reason to want to lust after her. Also, lust inevalekile, Joe. Awuboni lutho.
Yeah.
You understand?
But the Western civilized can say, no, women are feeling free because they can be able to dress in whatever fashion they want to dress. If mufaki miniskirt, let them do so. And the Muslim woman is being oppressed because he's covering.
He doesn't have a choice.
He doesn't have a choice in a way.
Let's go back to.
It's the old ways, man. Let's move on. The world has shifted from such. The modern way.
Angazi ngithi ngibize i-research. Even in the present World Cup, it happened. One of the videos, actually. But that has been taking place across Europe and some countries in the Arab Peninsula, whereby some women will actually approach women who are literally naked in their dressing. Babacela ukuthi sicela ukufaka ihijab. And immediately after those women wear that hijab, they feel so liberalized as women.
I think I've seen those videos.
Exactly.
Experimental, social experiment videos.
You understand? Now, if ever being naked was such a freedom, why would those women who were being made to wear those hijabs felt more free being dressed up? Let's ngakhohlwa ukuthi the reason why the West promotes such, it is because sex sells. Sithengisa imoto nge-sex. Here's a new car that comes through, kubeka intombazane efaka amabhekini.
Ibhale drive me now.
Drive me now. Ahmed did that.
Now my cell phones. You still remember when cell phones came in? Beka posa usisi in her what you call bikinis nge phone.
But he's selling a phone.
Thengisa phone lo muntu. You understand? So sex sells. So capitalism is about selling. And they'll do anything to sell. So hence, women's bodies were that is objectifying. Because when you look at that naked woman, what comes to your mind as a man? You're lusting after her. You're thinking about all those things.
So, but they say now that you lusting after her, it's your problem.
How can it be my problem? Remember, men are...
Close your eyes.
No. men we are visual beings, Chief. You understand? You need to look at the girl like, wow, I like her. Then you approach her. After seeing her, you understand? We are visual beings as I'm taught. And the West understands that very well. The Prophet understood that. Hence, ukuvala umfazi ukuhloniphisa. Isintu said, our own culture, I spoke about it earlier. Siyahloniphisa. You understand? I'll give you a practical example. Maybe it's you understand? And maybe for argument's sake, your sister-in-law, mhlambe uyo osifida ukudla, you understand? Nyeka angena angathwalanga ngesinto. Fanele asihloniphe uzothwala, you understand? Why? To avoid us looking at her in a lustful manner. Uzongena ahloniphise and nyeka asibheke emehlweni. Uzongena abulise abeka amabhedi phansi and quickly excuse herself. Why was that done?
The West is saying, if you don't look me in the eyes, you are disrespecting me.
Exactly, but that is them.
I think we have adopted a lot of ideologies from the West. Like our culture is nothing. It's a mixed masala.
No, there's a lot we took from them that we shouldn't have taken in Tokal. Remember, Wuti, part of why we took a lot of things from them was that we looked down on ourselves.
Simple example, maybe it can be whatever women are doing today. Not saying anything. But going back to that point that you just said, we look down on ourselves, maybe isn't that maybe the reason why women want to become light-skinned?
Exactly. Thank you. That's a great point. This bleaching of Ikumba, our sisters are bleaching themselves. And it is not just in the continent, even outside the continent where there are black people. There are women who are known to be bleaching themselves, even guys for that matter, straightening their hair. Lama week, that's why the late Baba Huma Sekela, you know the guy.
Yeah.
Huma Sekela caused an uproar when he was being interviewed by a lady who was wearing a weave. And he said, no, I'm going to interview amantombazana afaka ama-weaves. He refused. No, he said no.
Oh, I heard the actual Kumba, he even made a joke on that thing.
Yes.
He says, if you want to try with our women, we love our women with weaves. Yeah. So he refused. I never did follow.
No, he said no. Intombazana efake a weave. Uyazithuka.
Enjani emnyama?
Yeah, black woman.
Or black
efake a
woman.
weave. Ukuthi uNkulunkulu kuphe inwele zakho. Why can't you take pride in your own natural hair? That's what Huma Sekela was arguing about. Why ungazithandi as who you are? Why do you have to put somebody else's hair? Because weave inwele zomunye umuntu. That is hair, and it is discovered that most of these weaves is in India. There's a temple in India, I forgot which part of India. I saw that a few times, whereby they go there, but it's a sacrifice. And those ladies, they can grow their hair very long. You understand? They are cheaper than
Yeah.
their god, one of their many gods that the Hindus worship. And these businessmen take that hair until it becomes a weave and sell it to the world, sell it to Africans. You understand? So Huma Sekela was like, God gave you hair. Why can't you take pride in who you really are? So we fake. So he basically said, "Am fakes. They are not proud of Africa babo." You understand?
So a part of being African is to embrace
you, yeah,
who you are,
embrace
and where
who
you come
you are.
from. And one question will say, because now here's a question for me. There's this thing, African spirituality. It's going wild. Abantu bayatwasa, people have a calling.
Yo.
And people have, when we speak to one so-called African spiritualist, he has a different idea of it. You speak to another one, what he's saying is not matching. And now they're saying we should leave Islam, leave Christianity, leave whatever you are following and follow this African spirituality.
In fact, even better. There was this old man that I worked with. So he told me, Guti, you are a black person. Like, for instance, what you're saying, a lot of people might argue, but Guti, no, but you are also black people, but you are Muslims, which means that we don't take pride on who we are, meaning African spirituality. So this old man, what he gave me, we are busy, obviously. We are busy worshipping to them, worshipping Prophet Muhammad. We are busy worshipping Muhammad. Christians, they are busy worshipping Jesus. When as a black person, what are you worshipping? Because of those people that you are worshipping, it's basically the ancestors of the Arabs. So they have the right to worship. So you are African spirituality would know. Tina, we are right to worship our ancestors because of yes, they were black. You understand? So the Arabs, they are correct to worship Prophet Muhammad according to them. Worship Prophet Muhammad. What the white people, they are correct to worship Jesus.
Because it's from their lineage. We'll respond to that because we've heard it a lot of times. Like,
Okay, in Tukala, black people worship Umvelinqangi. Black people worship the one true God. in this country in particular, there were stories that we were told growing up. Ukuthi our ancestors used to go up a mountain if a drought. They'll go up a mountain and go pray to Umvelinqange. And by the time they come down the mountain, it will be raining. Umvelinqange is one god.
Yeah.
We have never had plural gods as Africans in Tokala. You go to Egypt, for example, they have the 12 laws of mud. Is it the 24 laws of mud, I think? Yes.
Yeah.
And those laws, when you read them, it's all about oneness of God. Tawheed. They talk Tawheed. And the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself, Ushilu Wuti, before, you understand, each and every prophet that came before him, bekatshela abantu ukuthi thandazani uNkulunkulu oyedwa. You understand? And we spoke earlier on about lo baba lo waseKZN who was advising us about amathonga namadlozi. But amadlozi are angels, amathonga are your ancestors. And that our ancestors never worshipped graves. Our ancestors never worshipped graves. We'll never go, I mean, Peggy, you are a thug. Bayakudubula uyafa kusasa. And then your son goes to your grave. Oh, Baba ngisize, Baba ngisize. You couldn't help yourself when you were alive. How dare, as I, your son, go to your grave and ask you to help me?
Do you know what they say?
You understand?
But mina njengoba ngisholile as the father, I am closer to God than the living. So according to their African spirituality, they cannot worship God direct. There has to be an intercessor. And in that case, the intercessor would be me. Or abantu abashonile.
Just like Jesus, just like Prophet Muhammad and all of this. So it's
So in
like
this-
a middleman.
Yeah, in this spirituality, there's always a middleman. You can't just.
And here's a funny thing. In the Bible, there's a story of the tearing of the veil. I don't know if you know about the story. It was during the prophethood of Moses. It was Moses or it was after who succeeded him? Moses after he went. It was Aaron, then it was Joshua. You understand? And you heard those high priests in the past. So how they used to worship was that there was an altar. And this altar, like a curtain, if you may. And only the high priest could go inside. But then the altar, at some point, it tore. You understand? And the tearing of the altar, it meant to go between. There's no more go between man and God. Our own prophet came with that also. Oguti, you pray directly to Allah. You pray directly to God. You don't go to him and say, Nabi ngicela ungithandazele ku Allah. Cha. You pray for yourself. The very same Bible itself, go Hebrews, there's where it even says, Uguti, you need to find your own little space, your own little corner. And ukhulume noNkulunkulu. It even says talk to God. Because prayer is basically conversations with God. That's what prayer is. Conversations with God.
So now, this thing of worshipping ancestors, do we have any idea where does it trace or how it begins?
Look, over
Africa specific.
Look, if you look at ancestral worship, not the entire continent per se. Let us primarily focus Gitila in South Africa. You understand? Hence, I'm saying, Guti, Lobaba waseKZN advised to Guti, we never did that. But along the way, when people lose their sense of self, divisions then you start worshipping ancestors because they are guide. I'll give you a practical example. For example, you look at, I'll make a very bad example, sadly, of the Eastern Cape during circumcision. If you look around other ethnic groups who go to circumcise, who go coming, as they call it in Sesotho, biocircumciser, it is mostly the guys in the Eastern Cape who die. Why? Ask yourself, why are they dying in such numbers? Because uku-circumciser, umuntu circumciser ubizwa inqibi, you know?
Ngani?
Inqibi, ubizwa inqibi.
NgeXhosa.
Yeah, ngeXhosa. I forgot the other, yeah. And inqibi, into ehamba ngomndeni. It is an art that you are taught by your father.
Or the person who circumcises.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
You understand?
Yes.
Ehamba ngomndeni, died in chief. From Peggy to your son, from your father, etc. You understand? It is skilled people who do that. You understand? And those skilled people, they know what to use in terms of the blade. They know what medication to use. Akusuba nobani. You just wake up in the morning and decide to go circumcise. Now we have had such cases in the Eastern Cape whereby people will even kidnap Twala, 12-year-olds. A 12-year-old doesn't go to circumcise. Intwana encane, you understand? There is a particular age group. And you are prepared, even ngesintu, you'll be told, ukuthi next year you're circumcised. They don't just grab you from the blue. No. We are prepared. Next year you're attaining this age, we entabeni. So psychologically we are prepared. The guys, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah.
They consult with the royal family of that part of town. Preparations are done a year in advance. Accent quick fix.
So yeah, so in a way you're saying the reason why there's a lot of deaths, yeah, is because of
Abantu abayenza are not qualified to do that. Are not qualified to do that. There are people who are specifically earmarked for that. It's a specific job for specific individuals.
And we need to take it back, and we've spoken about this earlier, but for the sake of the audience, the reason why we have understanding our bloodlines, and it's something which is called Mangaya right now, to say, okay, no, Sinoma Ubani, who can just come and just sing a second.
Exactly.
I mean, why is that important to understand?
There are lessons, for example, that only your father can teach you. There are lessons that only can you learn within the family environment than outside the environment. Remember, 50% of who we are, is what we learned and taught in Ndlini. The other 50 is a strategy. You understand? The other 50 is outside. But the core of who we are, sifunde emzini la sizalwa khona. So similarly, even leadership, I mean, as an example, of course, a guy does not learn leadership ngaphandle. Ufunda from the present king. You understand? The guy who's ruling ufundisa the next one how to rule.
Yeah.
And he'll do the same thing too to his son.
But others, they go to Europe and learn kingship.
And learn kingship.
No, I won't say they learn kingship. they learn whatever course they do.
Yeah, or to put it in a correct way, they never learned that kingship. They went wherever, studied whatever that they studied, and then they came back. They never even, they never even tried and understand even the language.
Yeah. No, they go to England. They must be called out.
Guys,
and then you wonder why some people are not accepting them, because of they'll be like, how is this person going to communicate with the elders? How is this person going to understand?
That's why kings are surrounded by a council. That's why sinenkundla. Ngesintu sinenkundla. Kunenkosi kunenkundla yakhe. Inkundla is made up of advisors who are well experienced in the affairs of the community, well experienced in the affairs of the tribe or the clan, if you may. That's why they come in. Because inkosi ayibusi nje, you understand? These guys need to come and advise, Your Majesty, we can't do 1, 2, 3. Your Majesty, we can't do 1, 2, 3. We can do 1, 2, 3. You understand? So we can blame whoever that we are blaming now to say he studied elsewhere and so forth. But he is surrounded by people who understand that tribe's values. You understand? And they'll be advising them. That's why a king is always surrounded by advisors.
So that ceremony that was done there, was it always done before?
Which one?
The ceremony before the coronation in Norman. Ngalesi isikhathi ezobekwa esikhundleni.
Yokuthi abulala ibhubesi.
No.
Not that one. Which one?
The Catholic. I think they came now.
Oh.
So,
You know, brothers, here's one thing that it's a sad thing. We were colonized by the British and the Dutch, although the British ended up dominating the country.
And by the way, it's still part of losing our way, ne? We have not
That's the first
defeated.
thing.
Yes.
And secondly, the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church in particular, that's why Anglican, British, Anglo, Yabo, you understand? We adopted it here. It's in the Anglican Church. Black people are going to the Anglican Church. But now the question is, who is the head of the Anglican Church? It is the king. It's not the Pope. It's the king. You understand?
The king, meaning the
yes.
ruler of UK at the moment.
The Anglican Church was born during the era of Henry VIII, the King of England then.
Yeah, okay.
Or Henry VIII, begashada abafazi, and they will always bore him girl kids. So he'll divorce them. So because of they were Catholics, the cardinal then told him, "Good to know, Your Majesty, a Catholicism ayivumeli divorce, as divorce a Catholic." Then he got rid of him.
Is it Catholic or Bible?
No, Catholic Church. Remember, the Catholic Church has its own church dogma. You understand? The Bible does allow separation.
Oh, okay.
The Quran does allow separation also.
Okay.
You understand? The Quran also allows it.
No, the Quran allows it, but I've heard Christians say
No.
It's the Bible, yeah?
Not necessarily. It is. Remember, each and every Christian denomination in an understanding, hence their denominations. Because if the understanding was the same, there wouldn't be so many denominations. And the reason again behind all these denominations is because of you've got different versions of the Bible. The late Ahmed Didat, he actually showed it in one of his many videos. There are approximately 8 versions of the Bible. You understand? And 8. And some of those versions, you don't find certain chapters. In some chapters, an example is Corinthians. Corinthians has more chapters. In other versions, it got lesser chapters. You understand? Which bears evidence to the fact that the Bible was tampered with. The Council of Nicaea itself bore testimony to the fact that the Bible was tampered with.
And the Council of Nicaea, it's where all the priests, the high priests,
Yeah.
meet,
Yeah. They tampered with it, you understand? So now, hence you've got all these denominations. Because understanding is but they're supposed to be following the same God, etc., etc. You don't find that in Islam. You can go worship, you can go now, fly to the States, go to any mosque you can ever find. What they're doing is what you're doing here at home.
True. So, not deviating from.
No, I was coming to the issue of Catholicism. As much as we're saying the coronation involved those guys, I was just trying to remind you we were colonized by the British. And the influence thereof is still with us to this very day. You understand? And now, because we have the such churches, your Anglican church, your Catholic church, your Methodist, etc., etc. And as a result, as Begasho earlier on, when I asked him if he was a Christian before, no, Begano access on to it. You understand? You were never questioned why this church. You just followed grandmother and granddad, or mom and dad, and went to church. And etc., etc. Some of us questioned such, others didn't. You understand? That's why slogan are corner. But like I'm saying, because we were colonized by the British, the influence is there, both on a religious level, social, political, economical, whatever way you can ever think of. They have influenced us a great deal, both on a positive and on a negative side.
Okay,
You understand?
I think ubuza the question, like, where do you think this African spirituality actually originates?
No, into African spirituality, as they term it, right now, the very people who are talking about African spirituality cannot even give you a doctrine on how to follow this thing. There is no written doctrine.
Thank you.
You cannot take easy into Moyen and say it is African spirituality.
That's my problem.
African spirituality. African spirituality Ubuntu.
You can't just freestyle things.
You can't freestyle. You understand? If I were to describe African spirituality, I'll say Ubuntu. Why Ubuntu? What is Ubuntu? Ubuntu is I am me because you are. And how do we practicalize Ubuntu? One, my neighbor cannot be hungry when my stomach is full. That is Ubuntu. Ingosasa next door cannot ehambe igodola ngewinter nginethi abantwana bafaka amajezi. Ubuntu is to see that child also ugqoka ijezi namanga esikolweni. Ubuntu is to see to it that my neighbor who's unemployed ngiyamzama ukuthi awuthiyame ngiyaqashwa kuphi naye athole isinkwa. Ubuntu is a politician who truly and genuinely looks out for the needs of a community I represent. That is Ubuntu. That is African spirituality. Because Tina, as Abantu, I'll give a practical example. When we talk about the Dutch East Indian Company that came through the Cape, they were welcomed. Ubuntu. Because those guys, they started by establishing a refreshing station. Because there was food, there was vegetation, there was everything there, you understand? The people welcomed them as brothers.
There's actually...
They came with a different agenda.
Sorry to interrupt. There's actually I heard it from this other person who was interviewed. I'm not sure in one of the podcasts. I think it was the podcast. Who's this? Okay, but yeah, I'll remember him later.
Okay.
So the guy actually said to Guti, it was actually not Jan van Riebeeck who was the first who
No.
Oh, let's podcast ka Panwell.
No. I mean, the first explorers, if I may use the word, in fact, I don't even like the word explorer, they were in the 1400s. And even before then, there is even evidence. Angathi sinendawo lesibiza iMapungubwe. You know Mapungubwe angithi? In Limpopo.
Yeah.
Mapungubwe, where they found a golden rhino, they found bracelets made of solid gold, etc. It is here in South Africa, Mapungubwe. It bothers us in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Mapungubwe, when they were digging, they found artifacts which are about 1,000 years old from China. They found artifacts out in Sudan. So evidence is there, Oguti. We were trading with each other in the continent. The Chinese were trading with us. Because also, in that score, there's a Chinese historian, there's a museum in China, I forgot which part of China, whereby they've got African artifacts that have been in China for 1,000 years, which bears evidence to the fact that we were trading with each other before these guys came. So, but you must understand why they had to lie about Van Riebeeck and everybody else.
Why?
Colonialism is about lies. You cannot justify hating and oppressing and killing people. You need to lie first about them. You need to create monsters out of them so that you can justify killing them. Because remember, Oguti, what the colonists said about us, that time we were swinging on trees, we were monsters, we were cannibals, we were everything bad under the sun. So they were saving us, the savages. Remember that black people were called savages by these colonists. The word savage was used as a justification to kill, as a justification to take the land. These are savages. So once you label a person as savage, access umuntu. So it's easy for you to kill them. Exactly.
And that method of labeling people as bad, it has been working.
It
Like
works.
you sever their roots.
Exactly. An example is that of the slave trade. I had a clip by one Sheikh Rashidin from America, African American guy. He said, Uguti, the slaves that survived the journey, the perilous journey from the continent to America, when they came there, they were told, Uguti, lani buya khona, we saved you. Yeah. We have siyantanda, that's why sinilethela America, to enlighten you. You were savages, you were this, you were that, you were that, you were that. And it worked to some people. You understand? It worked on some, because people started hating. That's why self-hate qala lapho. If you are told into ezimbi about your ethnic group, Amazulu, Anje, everything bad under the sun, you'll start hating Zulus. You may even end up divorcing yourself from the Zulus. You understand? Because you've been told so much that is so bad about Zulus. So that's where self-hate started. It started with people being told, they are worthless, they are not human, they are savage, they are this under the sun. You understand? That's why even Christianity it be easier to spread, because the priests that were brought, they were saving people.
Yeah.
They were saving savages. Hey, savage, come, let me save you.
Yeah.
You understand?
So, Sheikh, speaking of Indaba Yogu, speaking about self-hate, self-knowing, and all of that, if people start saying when we are bad, or your tribe, or your continent, or your people, obviously now you start hating. But now I want to go back to that question of saying, if I come and say, I'm denouncing all of that, because my people have been hated so many times and so for so long, for no whatever reasons. I'm saying I'm no longer identifying myself as Zulu. I'm no longer identifying myself as even black. I'm saying I'm something else.
Well, I'll say that's madness.
Because there are people who are saying, Mina, uphakathi angisambizi ngo-X manje.
But let's go back to that X element. Remember, the first person to use the X was Malcolm X. In fact, it was the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
And Elijah Muhammad, when he explained it, he said, Ibong esinazo, all the surnames that we have, your Johnson, your Sampson, your all these English surnames, those are not our true surnames.
That's why more.
Those were slave, because remember, a slave was named after his slave master. If the slave master was Stevens, you were John Stevens now.
Yeah.
That's
You
why
understand?
Muhammad Ali changed it into the.
His name from
Kind of
Cassius
one-
Clay.
Cassius
Cassius
Clay,
Clay, yes. Because he said it's a slave name, which is true.
Yeah.
You understand? So Malcolm, when he was adding on what Elijah Muhammad said, was that because angzazi ngubani, I don't know who am I. I'll use this X thing. ukuthi I am Malcolm X. Because my true surname angiyazi. Because it was stolen from me, it was taken from me.
And
You
the
understand?
others, when I share, they even go to an extent. They calling themselves gods. There's this podcast guy, I think Yamaz. Uthi yena akasaso umZulu. He's a god now.
So who did he create?
Angazi, ngisimeme simbuze.
Because a God creates.
He says it's sort of a god or a demigod.
A
So, yeah.
God creates.
No,
What who created and what did he bring to the earth?
No, that God meaning there's some superpowers in your thing. It is superhero.
No, it's saying God.
Oh, God.
Capital G.
Capital G.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Then,
So
then,
what did
then
he
the
do?
question is what
What
did
did he create?
I think they have all this madness and ideologies
You
that
understand? Who created?
creation is inside, you are God inside.
No.
Stupidity.
They are human inside with flaws. Hence, prophets came to try to correct those flaws. Hence, sinobuntu esabantu abamnyama to correct our flaws. Hence, I made an example about Ubuntu. Ukuthi Ubuntu bo correct is selfishness. Toqala. Uthi ngeke kulanjwe next door udla wena. And you know very well ukuthi labantu bayalamba.
Yeah.
You understand?
So Sheikh yini ke between is ubuntu no siko.
Usiko has evolved over time. That is culture, tradition. Cultures were, why I'm saying they evolved over time. When people met, asenza umzekelo, my family has a culture and a subculture. What is a subculture? Umtanaka culture. Kanjani? A subculture is what kwaphakathi do.
Yeah.
And some of the things that you guys do are not done kwaZuma.
Yeah.
And what the Zumas do, which you'll never find kwa Twala. Do you understand? That is a subculture.
But the
And these
culture-
are things that are created by men. They were never created by God. Cultures were created to, it was a form of
Unifying.
streamline. You understand? You understand? An example a culture. Isintu ukuthi umuntu wesimame kanje kanje kanje, isintu ukuthi umntana omfana kanje kanje kanje. That is culture. You understand? Whereby we're putting rules and regulations on how to conduct ourselves as abantu abamnyama and as other people that have their own cultures. An example thereof is Leyama tattoos. The tribe that is popular for Ama tattoos, it is the Maori tribe in New Zealand. Ne? The Maoris.
Okay. Ibuye New Zealand.
Yeah, but New Zealand.
So actually the tattoo ibuye New Zealand.
No, the tattoos have been there all along. But I'm saying they are the most popular as far as tattoos are concerned.
okay.
Because they tattoo their whole bodies, etc. But they use black ink, not other color ink. You understand? Only the modern guys will be using different inks and so forth. But the Maoris, it was culture for them to tattoo umntana omfana. Maga when he, as part of coming of age. Angithi a coming of age yeti circumcision. You understand? They are coming of age. The guy will go perhaps in the bush and kill an animal. Coming of age, he's tattooed. You understand? But the tattoos had meaning. It was not just a tattoo. The tattoo actually had a meaning. It was a message to others. You understand? A warrior goes to war. He kills people. He gets tattooed. You
And
understand?
it is something Isibona in this stupid movie Black Panther
You understand?
from Killmonger. I don't know if you watched it.
The reason one, no.
Why?
I haven't had time.
It's actually interesting to understand the ideology of these people. In fact, the colonizers.
Yeah.
When
When you have time,
Anything ingabhalangwa yithi akuseyethu. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Anything esingayiconceptualizanga isingayibhalanga
microphone.
phansi. You understand? Yeah. Anything esingayiconceptualizanga isingayibhalanga akuseyethu. You cannot have another man write your story.
So Sheikh, were we reading and writing before colonization?
There's a right. I actually had it on my old phone, whereby apparently there were some there were but in letters that people did in the continent. But the first people to write were the Egyptians in the continent.
And
that
they were
is.
black people.
And they were black. Then you go to present-day Iraq, which was then called Mesopotamia. You understand? They were writing, but they were using a different way of writing, Guma tablets and so forth. We had our own form of communication in the country. You understand? Tina, esabantu abanyambala, the Basotho, Zulus, and so forth and so forth. But primarily, we communicated with photos. It is not only the Bushmen who were like, badweba, nathi besetweba. You understand?
And those dwellings I haven't seen, man.
You understand?
Because I had a problem with pre-colonization, they move. Okay, people say we were reading and writing, but they are producing Latin letters. 26 letters. Like, no, these things here is born now. This is Latin. This is Roman. Where are our letters? How were we communicating if we were people of reading and writing?
Remember, if Bega, like the Egyptians call them the hieroglyphics. I hope I'm saying it correctly.
Hieroglyphs, yeah.
Yes, I'm a hieroglyphs now. I mean, look at them. The animals are used, people are used, and some form of writing is used to communicate messages.
Basically, I'm an emoji.
You could say that, you understand? But there was a form of communication that we had. And the Arabs, Nabo, you understand? I mean, it is even said, we would understand correctly, even some of the languages, there's a lot of Arabic that they stole, or Latin and so forth, you understand? But Tina, we had our own form of communication. Look, I send an example about Latin. Our law in South Africa, it is known as the Roman Dutch law.
Yeah.
You understand? Roman Dutch law. Meaning ukuthi akusomthetho wethu.
Yeah.
You understand? It subscribes to the Roman law, it subscribes to the Dutch law. You understand? Which has nothing African in it, which has nothing about us.
Yeah.
You
So when
understand?
it subscribes to that, maybe it subscribes in what form?
It subscribes because they were the conquerors, angisho. Yes. Remember ukuthi ama-conquerors mawafika endaweni ba-impose a culture yabo and they kill off the culture they find. A practical example is that of the Zulu royal family, or all other families for that matter.
Yeah.
You understand? When they came, by Mamenzi and Mqeshwayo, they imprisoned him. You understand? King Mqeshwayo. Bamfake ejele. Bamfile St. Helena, bambuyisa, and what have you, understand? And the succeeding kings, you understand? They were being compromised.
Yeah.
Why? Because they had, into ebuhlungu manje enzakalayo. We're talking about KZN, bathini le, Ingonyama Trust. Ne? How big is Ingonyama Trust?
I don't know. There's a lot of.
No, but it is under the administration of the king. But then, how far do the Zulus stretch? Are Zulus only in that Ingonyama Trust?
No.
The kingdom of the Zulus, before, during the era Agashaka, etc., until the British came. Where did the Zulu kingdom start and end? It's much bigger than we have, you understand? So hence I'm saying, our oppressors mabafika lana, they're to impose iwili yabo, they're to impose their laws, and in the process they're to take land. And remember, they used to call our kings paramount chiefs. They removed the king thing. You want to know, the king one is England.
Yeah.
They used to tell them, what Inkosi one is England, nina ngama paramount chiefs. We are subject of that guy, is also England.
But somebody can come and argue and say, the colonizers, they didn't really colonize. They fought with you and you lost. Hence they took everything. It was a battle. It's like, let's fight.
But who
it wasn't like hijacked in a way.
Yeah, true. Because of it can also go back to what happened in Ethiopia. They fought back. Unfortunately, Ethiopia, they won against the Italians.
So
the Ethiopians were prepared. Remember, the Ethiopians saw them coming. Tina sabamukela.
But
There's a difference.
After the first fight where we defeated them, it showed we were prepared for them. Because we ended up defeating them.
Yes, but remember, Isandlwana. The difference between Ethiopia and Isandlwana was that Ethiopia babashaya basangena. Isandlwana besebangenile, they were already present. You understand? They were established. The Italians were never established in Ethiopia. They were never established. Babashaya, so they were never allowed to establish themselves. You understand?
So-
That's why Ethiopia was never colonized, because they were never allowed to settle. You understand? Tina sababukela during the Dutch East Indian Company. Ngenani madoda nifuna ukudla, thathani idlani. Kanti bona bane-agenda. You understand? Hence, I made an example ukuthi you welcome uJZ in your house. He sees how beautiful your house is and he decides ukuthi now he wants your house. That time he's settled, you are comfortable, ubeki ikhali phansi. Unless you see him as a friend. So you'll never be carrying weapons around you. Ubeki ikhali phansi. Then he is still carrying his own behind his back.
Ubuntu must fall, eh? If that is Ubuntu.
No,
Remember now, it's funny nokuthi we are saying because of Ubuntu, come, let's trade, settle with us, here's my food, here's my family, yabona, there's vegetation, and then bah.
You understand? But like I'm saying, I was saying Ubuntu to be practiced githi amongst us abantu abamnyama in the country presently. Because abusekho manje. You understand? If Ubuntu bebukhona besisini Ubuntu, we wouldn't be having so many children being abandoned.
But man, to me now, Ubuntu man, sometimes it sounds as if it's a weak ideology to follow.
No.
Weakness, like buyers are these people who are saying Ubuntu. Like, where's the military force?
Okay.
Where's the boundaries and saying no, Baba or Imai?
Okay, let me make this example. Perhaps maybe it may not make sense
Yeah.
per se. During Imfekane, the Zulus and the Sotus in particular grew their tribes. The Zulus became the largest ethnic group in the country because why? Shaka assimilated the people he conquered. What is assimilation? I come and I conquer you. Ngithi from now onwards, usungumZulu, you are part of my tribe.
Right.
I don't kill you. Abantwana bakho nabafazi, they are assimilated into the tribe, and the tribe grows. He never killed women and children. They were assimilated. Those that were killed were those who resisted.
Which I understand, which I know is
Understand.
normal.
Yes.
It
But
must
like I'm
happen.
saying, Ubuntu is assimilation. The Quran tells us,
But
the
they will
Prophet...
say he was a killer, despite what
No.
he
Yeah,
was a
those,
killer.
those who hate him will say so. Look, those who hate Ushaka, I mean, you know, I'll give a good example about what you're saying about that he was a killer. The guy who narrates Ugufaga Malcolm X, in one of his narrations, says something to this effect that kunabantu abazositshela ukuthi we must stay away from Malcolm X, we must stay away from his memory, he was a bad person. And it's true.
Yeah.
There were people who labeled him as this monster.
Yeah.
You understand? So your enemies will never label you in good terms. You understand? It's like that. But like I'm making an example about Ubuntu. Let's go back to the very Quran. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught ukuthi there were rules of engagement in pain.
Yeah.
You don't burn fields, you don't kill the elderly, etc., etc.
Don't ban churches or
Shaka never did that. Ushaka bekashaya amasoja aresistayo. They were killed, but most of them were assimilated. Hence, the Zulus are the largest ethnic group in the country, because all the people that were conquered were assimilated into the Zulu tribe. And then Ama exiles, those who ran from Shaka, went to Mushwesho. Mushwesho assimilated them into Abesut. Hence, we've got these two ethnic groups being the largest in the country because of that.
but wasn't in that
People
way
were being
ukuthi-
assimilated. They were being brought in. You know, you are one of us, shalala, etc., etc.
That's why Lesotho yagcina independent country.
Hey, the Lesotho independence is another matter altogether. You understand? Because when you talk about the border of Lesotho, the original border of Lesotho, iqala la Everton, niyazi Everton angithi,
Yeah.
in the Val. That's where the original border of Lesotho starts. The kingdom of Mushweshwe starts, and it ends in a place in Meklie in the Eastern Cape.
Hey man.
There were Xhosas who were subject of Umushweshwe. You understand? What you see as Lesotho today is not Lesotho. The kingdom, as you know, which qala la Everton.
Why saying about colonize labo ones?
Bapi. No, Bala. There's a reason why.
Yeah.
In 1970,
In that word Sheikh assemble.
assimilate.
Let's assimilate.
No, there's a reason why we have
Now
Lesotho as
Putin
Lesotho.
yayenza.
Babani?
Putin ngiyayithatha.
No, Yaka Putin is a different, but I'll come to that. Lesotho, the reason why we have Lesotho as it is, in 1970, there was a referendum that was done in Lesotho, whereby people were asked whether they should reincorporate into South Africa or remain independent. The referendum was heavily in favor of reincorporation But the powers that be, because it meant if they reincorporate, they're going to lose the power yabo, they refused.
And Nama would refuse.
You understand? Because now, there's no more going to prime minister. Masima simulator be a prime minister. Minister be a He's going to be an honorary citizen. Some goes over a mayor. You understand? It means you do downgrade, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So they refused the powers that be. But the people wanted to come back to South Africa.
So, Sheikh, what is your take on Orania?
An embarrassment.
How is it embarrassment? I mean, for me now, if we now say a song can say, we're gonna build an estate, our families are gonna live there, and our friends, our companies is Obala. What's wrong in that?
An estate. Thank you for mentioning the estate. What is an estate? An estate is a group of houses. You understand? Whereby families group themselves. That's an estate. Orena is not an estate. Those guys are declared by a flag lab in Tokal.
I didn't know, but I feel like
Yes. They have got their own currency.
I've heard of the big government.
Exactly. They even have their own laws whereby black people are not allowed after 6 p.m. inside Orania.
But then what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? Orania is white, is Caucasian in an African continent.
Would you feel different if it was done by blacks?
Where?
I sit in hypothetical sake.
Create a country within a country.
Yeah.
It's a joke. To create a country within a country is a joke.
But that is what we have in Lesotho. It's a country within a country.
But Lesotho did explain, Noguti, there was a referendum and the powers that be refused to acknowledge that referendum. Hence, we still have Lesotho as it is to this day, completely surrounded by South Africa. But when we talk about the original Lesotho, it goes, I mean, you go to Aboval, Guna Matuna Lapana, as old as 100 years. You understand? Even longer than that.
Is it the same in Swaziland? In Lesotho?
Ibhore Swaziland iqale standard one baba.
No, like I'm saying, like the process, the referendum.
No, there was never any not that I know of. But I just know ukuthi the original kingdom akangwana. Angithi iSwaziland bebizwa kangwana, amangwana babizwa kanjalo amaswati. Iqale standard one.
No, it's actually not because of it's a country within us.
Yeah, it is a country within us, but Bona, I have no recollection of ever there being a referendum in that regard. I just know about Lesotho itself. You get my point?
Now, let's go back. The first time Islam settles in South Africa. Or in Africa we've already, I think we've already touched that.
Yeah.
I mean, you must understand in Africa, black people became Muslims unabi asapila.
Oh, Bilal.
No, nabi asapila. I'm talking about Ethiopia.
No, Bilal.
Bilal, yes. Yeah. Black people became Muslim
The
when
king
the prophet
actually became a king. The
a Muslim.
Negas. Yeah,
The Negas,
became a
yes.
Muslim, yeah.
Yes. But like, hence I'm saying, Guti,
No, but
black
you're not
people-
Basapila.
Yeah.
I'm saying Guti, the
Bilal.
people, I'm saying that the people became Muslims when the prophet himself was still alive.
Yeah.
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You understand? Yes. But now coming to the continent itself. Remember, I'll make an example about this country, Oman. I don't know if you know the country called Oman.
Oman. Is
Oman.
it in Middle East or?
Yes,
Oh,
it is
okay.
part of the UAE, United Arab Emirates. Oman and Yemen, there were Yemenites and Omanites that came into the continent as traders, not as slave traders. Traders are businessmen, if you may. Bafika to present-day Mozambique and other parts of the continent, you understand? That's how Islam spread. And it spread again, they intermarried with the local women, etc. Tina, in this country in particular, ifike with the Malay, the first ever Muslims to arrive in South Africa were Malay slaves, you understand? Indonesians, Abu Tuan Guru and so forth.
Yeah.
They were the first. But then because of the laws of that time, they couldn't preach the faith. They only preached it among themselves. Tuan Guru was known to have memorized the Quran in its entirety. He even wrote it down from memory. That's how good Tuan Guru was. Ituna like in Cape Town.
Yeah.
Yes. He wrote the Quran from memory.
Was a shura.
From Surah Fatiha until the last surah, you understand? From memory. That's how he was a super sheikh, that guy, you understand?
Wikipedia though doesn't mention Wikipedia, because I went through it. Wikipedia says Islam came with the Indians in the 1800s because of through that slaves through that slave trade. Angithi they were slaves now. They were taken from India, and then they were
West Indies.
No, let me explain.
India.
Indians,
They were taken in their country and then they were brought to South Africa so that they can be laborers,
Thank you.
workers.
And then the Indians influenced the Africans to become
Which
Muslims.
means they came to Islam.
Can I correct that?
Ingakho ngisho ngithi, but no uzoqedelela. Ingakho ngisho ngithi they don't mention that. But futhi umubhekisisa phezulu, they say bakubhalela the oldest mosque is eKapa. When you click there, that's when you see
Exactly.
what.
Remember in Wikipedia also big. I can go to
Yes.
Wikipedia, write whatever.
Exactly.
But the first thing that they show, they say it's Indians, and we know
Which is not
in
true.
this country, black people think ukuthi Islam is for Indians. It's like that.
Okay, that's why I get it, but then at the same time, abantu bethu nabo are guilty of not informing themselves. Any person who's ignorant of a history is guilty. You can't be ignorant of who you are. Like I'm saying, as he mentioned, Uguti, the oldest masjid in Cape Town was built by the Malay, not Indians. The first Muslims to arrive here were Malay, not Indians. Indians were in 1860. And the Indians that came were a mixed masala of both Muslims and Hindus.
Yeah.
Muslims and Hindus. And they were what was called indentured labor. Because was sevenza kumashuga cane, you understand? Yes. They were brought, because remember, when the British removed the Zulu ancestors from those sugar canes, angithi remember through land grabs.
Yeah.
After removing them, they'll ask him to go work in that land, into that sugar cane. So bunga sebenza kwiland we own now. It was your land. Now you are being brought back as a worker there. So the Zulus refused. Then the British were like, okay, let's try it. So Landamandi.
Yeah.
And the Indians that were brought here, they were brought all over where the British were. There are Indians that were brought in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago in particular. You understand?
They were brought as workers.
They were brought as workers because those were conquered, those were removed from their land, refused to work on that land.
Yeah, I have a question, but I think this is we cover later. But the question is, then if they were bought as workers, then if you get to a point where they are owning each and every corner of this puzzle shop, we are now the ones who are working for them. They now work for themselves.
No, remember, after 1860, when they came here, they never went back home. They never went back to India.
Trevor now even makes a joke ukuthi Durban it's a capital city of India.
Yeah, in fact, Durban has the largest Indian population outside of India in the whole world. There are more Indians in Durban than in any other non-Indian country than in India itself. There are Indians in other parts of the world, you understand? But KZN has the largest, numerically speaking, you understand? Because, yeah, I understand. So, but Bona, you must understand that when apartheid became official government policy, you understand, that's where this thing, separate development started. And by separate development, we meant there were different laws for different racial groups in the country. There were different laws that governed Amakalat. There were different laws that governed black people. There were different laws that governed whites and Indians. And Tina, we are right at the bottom. It is white, Indian, colored, and black people. Tina, we are right at the bottom of the food chain. You understand? So when those laws came, we also had in 1985 what was called the tricameral system. It was in 1983, actually. The tricameral system basically legislated that Indians had more rights than us. They could vote. They had better access to land.
Before us?
Yes.
Even.
They had better access to land, better access to resources, etc., etc. You understand? Right now, as we speak, Indians own 5% of South Africa. Tina, 4%. The rest,
Even.
Amakrat Nabelung. You understand?
So it was those laws that made Indians to have this much
You
power
understand?
over us.
So a tricameral system benefited them a great deal. But what benefited them a great deal was us. How? In the 1980s, we had what was called, we started with the rent boycott. I don't know if you ever heard about the rent boycott. The rent, whereby in the 80s, as a form of fighting, EUDF by then used to encourage people to boycott Batala a rent.
A rent group.
Our councillors by then, they were called the Bantu Legal Affairs, something like that. The Bantu administration, yes. We used to have what was called Bantu administrations, meaning that they were administering our townships. So our people were paying rent to those Bantu administrations. So the ANC by then was like, "Ngapatala ama rent," as a form of protest. Then that rent boycott was followed up by the consumer boycott. What asiteng ebalungwini. So what happened? Whom did he have to buy to? Because of the mistake of then was that asiteng ebalungwini by sitenga kubani, because we didn't have businesses. Remember that our oppression was legalized. It was law that a black person mustn't have a business. It was law. You understand? It was law. If you say amakasi angena amashipa, it was law.
So people who are saying, Guti, it's apartheid that actually made us to be this poor. They have a point.
No, Chief, apartheid created the system. Look, you know, apartheid example. It's like a house. When we build a house, we foundation. We have to dig the floor, the ground, lay foundation, then etc. right until the roof. You understand? So more delays at that house. You can't delay at the house without dealing with the foundation.
Yeah.
You understand? Apartheid is like that. It was started, you understand, from Pansy to what it is. So even we destroy it, it won't be an overnight thing. Because remember, apartheid was both physical, it was psychological, it was emotional, it was financial, it was in every aspect. You couldn't go to a certain place. You couldn't swim in a certain sea. You couldn't live in a certain place. You couldn't work at a certain place.
You couldn't own it.
You couldn't own a business. It was law.
And then come
You couldn't
1994.
travel, as you understand.
Somebody's saying 1994, okay, ANC or PC, or this was story less. The people who were designed, actually not designed, they were made to liberate ANC. They were designed to liberate. And that was the whole mission, to say, it's cartel apartheid. And now when it came to them to own, to sort of run the country, they were not equipped. And that is why we're having all this mess up. So people who were supposed to be, like people who were supposed, it's like Utati soldier in pain and saying, go govern the country. He doesn't know, he only knows how to fight.
Here's a thing that many people may not be aware of. The corporate, I'll make an example about the corporate world. Ne? Uguti, we had black graduates in all these fields. And when they went into the corporate world to go work there, they were sabotaged. You understand? They were undermined. Sometimes even undermined by our own people. Why? That's where inferiority complex and self-hate comes in. I'd rather be told by Johan. You understand? And sometimes told to Johan himself,
Yeah?
yeah. There's evidence to that. There's a guy who passed away, I think it was last year. He was an economist. The guy was Avele TV, all the channels, SABC One, talking about economy, inflation, this. And it was discovered the guy was a matriculant. White guy. I forgot his name.
No.
Yeah, Kuluma, he was an expert, an economic expert. Whenever cinema inflation, recession, the guy would be called in and he'll be giving his input. Hey, they rent this, etc. He'll be going on and on. And we discovered when the guy died, the guy was a matriculant.
So you're saying, Sheikh,
You understand? But because Umlungu, he got away with it.
yeah.
You get my point. And it's not only him. You ask yourself, how many? You get my point? He got away with it. So, hence I'm saying, Guti,
And then you get, sorry for interruption, you got to the former president being a president. Even before he started being a president, people were saying, no, he's unlearned. How can we be led by someone who's uneducated? And then you told her this, okay, now I think Upume after the SABC CEO.
Cloud.
I think Upume after, and fortunately, but no, now he was uneducated in a way to
But I don't think the argument here is education.
The argument is not education. The argument is capacity. I made an example about Inkosi. Inkosi is surrounded by a council, Inkundla. Similarly, you can say JZ perhaps was uneducated, but was he surrounded by uneducated people? Absolutely not. You get my point? A leader is made by his team, by the team that surrounds him. Because obviously he's taking pointers from them. They are advising on economics, they're advising on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So he does not make decisions. He doesn't thumb-suck a decision, no. Whatever decision that is taking place was discussed with people who are experts in particular fields.
So that maybe we can say, or maybe 50% or whatever, we can say the reason why the ANC more illegal is not because they don't have educated people to advise them. It's because of something else.
No.
Other reasons besides education.
The primary reason why things went downhill was because of greed. Simple. A guy
It's not about competence.
No, it's greed. Umuntu pay budget. I'll make an example about tenders. A guy is given a certain amount of money to say this tender is worth this amount of money, to maybe build a road or build a school, whatever that tender is supposed to do. What do those guys do, those tenderpreneurs? Otata part of that money and we use it for himself. I say to the particular goal where it is intended to be going, you understand? Otata a certain portion of that money. It's like when I need to paint this place. Stologuti pende is worth 20,000 rands. Now 20,000 pili, hambo tengi pende. When udla 5,000, utenga ipende shodayo. The next thing you didn't paint the entire place.
Just put water.
Yeah, ufaka manzi, you understand? So kuna cracks ebundeni. I know what I give you 20,000 rands. How big you chief, but you didn't buy. But I can see the quality like see bend. But ngite uye kuphi utengi bend. No, they pocketed some of the money.
Yeah, so
that's what has killed us. People became greedy.
Kwezinye izinto we can't blame njengobusho. We can't. I think we can't blame apartheid. It's us.
We shouldn't.
It's us.
Yeah. Look, the biggest problem is now Oguti. People are getting away with murder. That's the biggest problem.
And theft.
Yeah. At China, they execute politicians who steal. Execute.
Hey.
Corrupt politicians are executed in China.
Lana, they don't even go to jail.
Lana, he gets deployed. So kule department, uyodla kule department. He's deployed.
It makes me angry.
You get my point? So into esibulalayo greed.
But why we protect her? Like,
there's the timing setting is
Mafia demands.
Let me tell you a story. When I was still a pharmaceutical industry, when I was in the pharmaceutical industry, there was a doctor, I won't mention his name obviously, but we Atlantium. The guy was multifaceted, very talented, medical doctor by profession, but bigger study she is into like tenders and stuff like that. And then he applied for a particular tender, I want to do this, because he had the expertise to perform such a responsibility. He applied for that tender. And those people who received the application realized that this guy really has the capacity to fulfill this. But Bam rejected. Do you know why? Because they didn't know him.
Oh, okay.
As Mazi. So that is another problem in the ANC, in the corruption in I am capacitated to perform a particular task, but because I'm not known by certain individuals, therefore I'll never get that
nepotism.
Exactly. But in nepotism, now you end up giving somebody who is not capacitated to perform that task. Ubegi is a school teacher. He knows nothing about road construction. Akayifundelanga le nto yokwakha indlela. Because it's a study on its own, phela road construction.
Yeah.
It's a study on its own. You understand? You need to know what to mix, when, how, why, etc. It's a study on its own. Then it is given to you because we're impinji yethu. You go make a mess esiyibona lapha ekhaya.
Abayilethe la kimi abazobona.
You understand? Because into oqala wena ubona imali. You start, I mean, imali ithini kuwe sofuna la Land Rover, wena buy that Land Rover. Musakhipha umntana laphana esikolweni ngimisa send what. You understand?
Kunomunye athi wenze example ukuthi, I mean, if you take a person samvalele in a cage and he's been in a cage all of his life, doesn't eat much. Bile kumvulela. That person is gonna grab whatever food they corner both hands. I think that is what is happening in the We were hungry for so long, but now we are taking even extra support.
No, mina nyala. You know why I'm saying
Why?
that? The government of the day was phased in. They didn't just be boom, government. These guys went to, there's a school of leadership, a school of governance in Pretoria. You understand? They went to those places, school of governance and stuff. They were prepared.
Thabo Mbeki, I think he specifically went to UK.
You understand? No, Thabo Mbeki was in UK during his exile days anyway. Yes, the exile, we spent the better part in the UK. I'm talking about governing. Ukuthi governance, people were prepared to govern. But prepared. They were never thrown in the deep end.
Also include your ministers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I'm saying they were still hungry.
That's why the issue here, the issue is greed. Actually, greed. Why? Because of when these guys took over, it's not like where they became a minister or whatever the case may be. No. The guy was earning a particular salary with all the benefits that come with that position I occupy. So umuntu alright will actually be comfortable with what they were earning and do umsebenzi wabo. But because of greed, inkinga ukuthi sifuna ukuzicompare nabantu. Ubheki has a helicopter. Ngikhohle ukuthi ubheki worked for that helicopter. Mina, because I want that helicopter, ngizoqala ukutshontsha imali so that I can have that helicopter. Because greed has to do with the fact that people want to be like the Joneses.
Yeah.
People want to have millions in foreign bank accounts. You understand? Inkinga isuke lapho. People were never true revolutionaries. I'll make an example about the revolutionary. The ANC and other people like talking so much about Fidel Castro in Cuba.
Yeah.
Castro, for the period of time he was head of state as a Cuba, he lived a very, very modest life. I watched 2 documentaries of his. It looked average, man. It was not a palace.
Yeah.
You understand? It was an average, simple house. In one of our areas. And so, you understand? He lived a very modest life. Very modest. His ministers lived modest lives. The rest of the money, to train doctors, to develop Cuba. There's a clip whereby he mentions, like Cuba, we don't manufacture weapons to kill people. We train doctors to heal. Cuba has exported doctors in just about every corner of the world. Even during the COVID, they sent doctors to Italy, Lana, the whole of South America, etc. They export learned people with minimal resources. They even trained our own South African doctors went to go train in Cuba. Mahala.
Oh, it was Mahala.
You understand? No, the government was paying something to the Cubans, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But when we are Mahala?
When we are free, when we don't pay a cent.
But why are we, one question, one of our friends, why are they still sending doctors to go train there? Can't they train like in Southern?
In Southern, let's be honest, our universities are expensive. But our universities are the best in the world. Do you know Oguti vets, graduate vets, they get recruited by Europeans? Yes. They get recruited by Europeans.
Yeah, I think in certain fields.
Yes.
Especially
science, accountancy, etc. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that our universities are up there, Chief, with the best in the world.
100,000 a year.
You get my point? In-
120, sure.
but the question is, can our government afford to send medical students there? The answer for me is yes. We have the resources to train.
So it's cheaper outside.
No, it's cheaper for them in Cuba. You understand? It's cheaper for them to send people in Cuba. But the thing is, we have the capacity to train doctors in this country.
But the question goes, why don't you invest some of that money here in this country? Because if we are saying education is expensive, okay, take that money, identify those good learners that are willing to do with doctor, that are getting good marks. Because of, I think, for you to go to Cuba, you need to like get a certain percentage or whatever. Why don't you invest that money in South Africa?
The answer is, if Cuba, with minimum resources,
They can do it.
can do it with their own citizens, why aren't we doing it? And the answer, I said it earlier, greed.
Yeah. But
We are a rich country compared to Cuba. We are wealthier than Cuba. But Cuba is able to train its own people mahala.
But if it wasn't it part of the agreement that Fidel made no Mandela for Bonga, okay, maybe let's give you the certain amount, okay, then maybe you can. Maybe it was a way of boosting their economy.
Perhaps, but then again, you must understand one thing. Cuba contributed a great deal to the liberation of the country.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying
Balwa.
for gratitude.
Yes, balwa equito Carnavale in Cuba, in Angola. Bashama soja alana. They decimated them, Cuban soldiers, in Quito Carnavale. You understand? About double SADF. You understand? They mesmerized them. So the Cubans has contributed a great deal in the liberation of the country. So perhaps, as he says, maybe it is gratuity to say, okay, we'll give you a certain amount of money, train our doctors.
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, we do have the capacity to train our own doctors. Considering the wealth we have, and if Cuba, with its minimal resources, can do it for themselves. But they're training their own people, mahal.
Now, see, narrow it down now. Present day, 2022, Muslim, Ekasi. What is this, according to your own experience, Sheikh? Your experience on how Muslims are, black Muslims, specific Ekasi, in terms of them wanting things for themselves, build schools for ourselves, hospitals, clinics, even security that Kijimaya around.
Black Muslims have not united in the country the way we're supposed to be. In Twala, we conceptualize the Gauteng Muslim Shura Council with the express aim of kuhlanganisa black Muslims in Gauteng, but by extension, the country as a whole. Because as a Gauteng Shura, we visited other provinces, encouraging our brothers to ahlangane.
So
Sizakheni as Gauteng Muslim Shura Council.
Gauteng Muslim Shura Council, yeah.
Yes.
Uphinde futhi bayizwe kahle.
Gauteng Muslim Shura Council.
Yeah.
You understand? So, I conceptualize ukuhlanganisa abantu to say, let us meet as thina abantu abamnyama, black Muslims, because you look at the Islam in the country. We are the only people on earth, if I may use the word, abangena identity yabo. Into yokuqala, we wear amakurta ase Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. You go to Sudan. Sudanese have a distinct line amakurtas. You can tell a Sudanese magazine go to lo ase Sudan. Umbona ngani ngekurta yabo. They've got their own style. You go to any Muslim country in the world, they've got a distinct identity that identifies them as who they are from that particular part of the world. Asinathi naleyo identity.
Also, it's allowed to like make your own designs look good.
Here's the thing abantu abangaunderstand ngekurta. Islam ayina sambatho. People need to understand that. Its dress code, as taught by the Prophet, was modesty. The Prophet said, be modest in your dressing. What is modesty? Modesty is you covering my private parts. That is being modest. There's no mention of the kurta there. He said, be modest.
So Linda be kurta, it's a cultural thing.
No, let's make a very funny example. If the Prophet was born in Iceland, he was going to dress in accordance to the place where he was born.
Yeah.
Now he was born in one of the hottest regions in the world.
And
in the Arabian desert. So he must dress accordingly.
Yeah.
You understand? All of us dress accordingly in as far as the weather patterns are concerned. So he dressed accordingly. But what he said was that we should be modest. Sifihla ama-private parts ethu, sihlonipheke. There's no mention of the kurta there. The kurta became a cultural thing. Hence I'm saying, Guti, many countries, many Muslim countries have a distinct identity as per the kurtas they wear. Indonesians, but not distinct. You can identify an Indonesian. You can identify a Sudanese, as I said. You can identify the Qataris, whoever. The Pakistanis football about West. Amakurta are special. They've got this design.
Yeah.
You get my point. Where is ours? So the first thing is we need to create our own identity as a Muslim in the country. Right now, the Amir of Gauteng is going to make a submission soon on the bill, the marriage. You understand? The Muslim Marriages Act and so forth. Well, you understand? And in it, that's why he proposes, Uguti, we need to identify with that marriage bill as black Muslims.
So what does that bill mean? You should tell that.
Well, I have not read the bill exactly, but I have not read it all because it's quite a lot.
Maybe you can
you understand?
highlights.
But Yona, like a recognition of divorce, recognition of pattern. Equality basically between men and women in terms of divorces and settlements and all that.
Okay,
you understand?
Meaning now, if I had to divorce, it mean so that'll take a country.
Yes, but
not our own.
Not our own. But at the same time, as per Muslims, it does not even cater for polygamy. I cater for a polygamous relationship. This marriage bill that is being the bill. I got passed. Yeah, Amir is submitting my suggestions. It needs to cater for a polygamy.
Oh, okay.
Because amongst us, there are people who have more than one and so forth. And polygamy is both an Islamic right and also an African right.
And the South African law doesn't identify.
I'm not too sure, Guti, what does the law says about polygamy, but I know, Guti, generally polygamy is frowned upon. Generally, you understand? Yeah. So that's why even in our religion, the Prophet made provisions in as far as polygamy is concerned. What are the conditions for you to be in it? So that's what we're looking at in that. Guti. It has to provide for our own identity as black Muslims, because remember, right now in the country we've got Muslims from Egypt, we've got Pakistanis, we've got Bangladeshis. We've got Indians, we've got West Africans who are here. And their understanding of Islam is different. An example being, Oguti, most Indians are Hanafi, school of thought. And you go to West Africa, Malikis. They follow the Maliki madhab, the Maliki school of thought, the Maliki fiqh, you understand? So I'm a fiqh ayat difara, but they are not so different as such.
Yeah.
But there'll be those teeny-weeny things whereby there's a slight difference in what have you understand? Which identifies one as a Hanafi, one as Maliki, one as Hanbali, etc. You understand? So we are saying, as black Muslims, we need to create our own identity, but be recognized also.
Yeah.
In that bill, like for example, the element of polygamy. There are amongst us who are polygamists, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And now, Sheikh, before maybe one step, as you've said, you are submitting that bill. What else maybe do you think practically can be done for a regular Muslim or Sekasi can just start saying, okay, now we are starting our own thing. We can't wait for the bill to pass and say, we have already started our identity or stuff like that.
No, Tina, everything starts with, it's money. It goes back to money. It goes back to dependency. The most important thing, if we can kill off dependency with food parcels.
Right.
If we can kill off dependency with food parcels, because that you know, an example thereof is when the Phoenix massacre took place, when people were killed in Phoenix, there were posts on Facebook whereby some Indians were saying that we should be grateful to them because they gave us food.
Even.
There were posts like that. People telling us we should be grateful. We are ungrateful.
So which means it's a right for them to kill us.
There was even swear words. There were even profane words that were used in those posts. How ungrateful we are. Asina dangi, we are feeding you. Those are the words. You understand? We are feeding you. So meaning that because you are feeding me, you are justified to kill me.
Basically.
You get my point? So hence I'm saying what in Twala as black Muslims is to end a dependency kuma food parcels, and there's nothing stopping us from taking care of ourselves. We build churches out here. I spoke at Iloguti. There's not even a single church in any location that was built by non-locals. You can name a church. All those churches were built by people, our people. I want our colleague.
But don't you think it's odd, Sheikh, to sort of reject the charity? I know, Bona, they
No.
give charity in a ngalomqondo wabo twisted.
No,
But to reject it,
No,
it's something else. Yeah?
I'm not saying reject charity. You understand? I'm not saying reject it. I'm saying dependency on charity. Whereas you can actually do stuff for yourself. I made an example, Eloguti. Soweto, for example, has by far the largest Muslim population in the country. Tina, even our own neighborhood, if siyahlangana, guys who are employed, we can easily feed ourselves.
Yeah.
Easily. Here's a sad example. AmaKrestu do that. I've never seen some wide group visiting a particular Lutheran church or whatever church delivering food parcels lapha. Nangaze ngiyibone. Why yenzakala kuma-Muslim kuphela? Why don't Christians do it? Instead, kuba Krestu, as we speak, there's a particular church that I respect so much, yaka Pastor Sono, a Grace. That man was even able to establish a bursary fund.
And
You understand? He was able to establish a bursary fund, Pastor Sono. Ufaka abantwana bakhe esikolweni, those who are abantwana bama-attendees of that church. Sihlulwa yini? If we were able to build churches, inkinga one. Many of us, when we became Muslim, we folded our arms. There's nothing wrong with charity, but there's everything wrong with
Becoming
a
a
person
beggar.
becoming a beggar and being dependent on it, whereas you can actually do it for yourself.
It's even haram to be a beggar.
In fact, I was trying to make this example, Uguti. I met these ladies a while back at Checkers. But for me, Stockfell. I think it was about 10, 11 ladies. But there are stamps, Checkers. You buy those stamps from 10 Rand, 20 Rand, 50 Rand. You paste them in a book. You can buy them as often as you wish.
Yeah.
Then after 12 months, you take that book. Uyangai Checkers, you think ukudla ngayo. They check the worth of those stamps in the book. If the book is worth 3,000 rands, for argument's sake, or 5,000 rands, or tata a grocery worth that amount of money, of your choice, the grocery of your choice. You understand? And these people, mabatata food stamps lab, they even create bags for each other. That bag in uwasha, toiletries, everything, food, whatever. Right now, one of the saddest realities that has happened in as far as food parcels are concerned, there has been, I'm talking about what I've seen. We have had expired goods being sent to us.
Hey, but
It's true.
send it as bolil.
Yes. We have had expired foods or near expiring goods being sent to townships.
Undermining to the core.
That's why I've got issues with this food parcels thing.
I think even
Because there's no sincerity in it.
I think even Ninja, that was like a groomed ukuthi idle ukudla okurayt. Yazi ukuthi imizi ukudla ekubole. Yazi ukuthi ayikudli.
And one thing I say, Kohlwayo, Islam teaches us one thing, what is halal, what is haram. Halal has to do with how we slaughter. Nokuthi sihlukane ingulube, sithathe ingulube and so forth. And that's it. And we were taught how to slaughter animals and so forth. Other than that, what is stopping us from ukudla ipapa nomrogo? People are crazy about biryani. People are crazy about biryani. You understand? Ungathi now, if you don't eat biryani, you're not Muslim enough.
Or chilies.
No, it's cheese.
What's stopping you from eating your spinach and pap and be good on your mpet in your lala
In
and make
fact,
swala?
the definition of halal it's chilies.
You understand? So those are realities that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
Uguti, we have lost a bit of our identity such that we think certain foods are more acceptable to us because we are Muslims.
There's even a friend of mine that I was with the other day. He said to me, I must stop eating in this halal restaurant or these restaurants that post halal food. these people, it's like they are trying to colonize our food. I'm like, this person, which means it doesn't understand the meaning of,
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, that's why I'm saying we need to understand what halal is, what haram is. Once we understand that, there's nothing stopping us from eating what we're supposed to eat. It does not have to be, look, there's nothing wrong with Indian cuisine. Please don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with Indian cuisine. It's nice, you understand? But we should not make it such a focal point that we forget who we are. And we say, good, if you're not eating that particular cuisine, therefore you are a lesser Muslim. That's an issue I'm having.
Yeah.
You get my point?
Makes sense.
The cuisine is cuisine. It should not determine who you are. It's just cuisine. There's nothing, hence I'm saying, Guti, I can to stop a Muslim from eating. I mean, I made an example. Here's the thing that happened when our new Imam came. Because I spoke to him, we need to create identity at in our hood. For the first time in a long time, our Eid, we were eating spinach. For the first time ever. There was no biryani. And I was excited. And I said, it's about time we eat our own food. Sakhohlwa ukudla ispinach necabbage. What's wrong with eating that?
Sifuna ibraya.
No, sifuna biryani. You get my point? No, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, Indian cuisine is nice, but why should we abandon our own cuisine because we are Muslims? That's my issue.
That's the problem. Yeah, makes sense.
Understand?
Now, I think getting into the last part, the part of my bank. I know you were speaking about an Islamic bank or Islamic finance.
No, we started a corporate bank, you know, but it is still in its infancy, unfortunately, although we started it more than 2 years ago. We need more people to buy into it for it to stand out and be a proper corporate bank as such.
Is the budget there?
Budget kanjani?
No, before say go budget,
No.
How is it different from?
It's a corporate bank with Islamic ethos in it. Yes. I don't want to say much because we're supposed to keep this thing under wraps per se. It is supposed to be something that amongst our circles as Black Muslims. You understand? We're trying to do something for ourselves.
Yeah.
But a corporate bank with Islamic ethos in it. You understand? Whereby city asizakeni singama Muslim abamnyama. You understand? So the unfortunate thing is that not every person is buying into it. You know, there's that element of suspicion and so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, the budget I was referring to, like, because when I was like doing my research, to start a bank, you need to have a capital of
100,000 or whatever.
250, and then a mutual bank, it's what, 10 million.
It's 10 years.
Yes.
But then remember that the state, treasury actually has provisions for such, whereby once you guys are registered and have a particular amount of money, they are able to come in and assist our code.
No, okay.
So like Tina, as I'm saying, Guti, once Twala buy in the true sense of the word, then we can launch.
So this contribution, will it be made among Muslims, or do we have other funders?
No. Ideally, it is supposed to be Black Muslims. Ideally.
So me
because faneke say own, we need to own the process. You get my point.
Yeah. So me njengobheki awufuna ukuthi obviously iqale this bank be active. How do I contribute?
No,
conceptually right now. Yeah.
No, there are application forms. There are application forms that you are given. You read through them and then you consult the relevant chairperson of the bank, of the corporate institute, and then he'll give you further information going forward.
All right.
Yes.
Makes sense. So, yeah, as much as more information, definitely I should be, so post on my podcast because I know there are a lot of Muslims who want that. Because unfortunately, you know, it's banker, non-traditional, traditional, and there's interest even in our normal transactions. There's interest that is, of course, but it's there.
Relation is there.
Yeah, so we're trying to move away from that riba.
If you can.
If you can.
So does the bank have the same ideology of moving away from?
Yes, that's why I'm saying it has Islamic ethos in it.
Okay.
Yes.
No, okay.
One aspect before yoguthi, what can we do as Black Muslims? Black Muslims don't network. Asazani, we need to be honest about that.
Yeah.
Hence, we established a South African Black Muslim Conference, primarily to get us networking nationally. Because asazani, You know, we don't know each other, we don't network, we don't visit each other. And then we even struggle with wives. Umuntu ufuna umfazi, a Muslim lady, he struggles to find a lady because we don't network, we don't know each other.
Amen.
Yeah, amen, yeah. So, as a result, I mean, ukungazani kwethu kuyasilimaza at the end of the day. It draws us back. Because if we were networking the way we're supposed to be, we will never have some of the problems that we're experiencing. You know what I'm saying? So, and by networking, I'm not saying we should hate other people or abandon them. No, I'm saying Tina as us. I mean, other nations network.
Yeah.
I'll make an example. The Somalis in the country, in South Africa, they've got their own Amir. They've got their own leadership structure.
Yeah, man.
They've got their own, yes.
So lama shop umana like
They are well, these guys are well structured. Yes.
Yeah.
These guys are well structured. The Bangladeshis, the Pakistan, you name them. These guys are structured. Bana hierarchy of leadership. Bana hierarchy of business people and so forth. They have a powerful network. You understand? Hence, they are able to dominate what they are dominating because it's a network.
Because I've seen even when they stalk,
You understand?
they stalk in bulks.
So it's a network.
Because I mean, there was like some sort of like a warehouse that I once saw a Kapa. There's actually like a building
No,
where those bulks are stored at a pan.
They already have a wholesaler la at Joburg. Yeah, but Somali, as we speak. Their own wholesaler.
Silele.
You get my point? So I'm saying, we are not networking out here. You understand? We are trying to establish a structure as a Gauteng Shura to say, here is a structure. Let all the Muslims of Gauteng subscribe to this structure from their masajid. Because this structure is very democratic in that all of us in that structure, we are representative of our own respective masajid across Gauteng.
And this I think, Sheikh, will also not only in marriage, opportunities,
In every aspect of
opportunities as black people, as the youth, we are crying in this country. There's no jobs, there's no in. There's a network. If you are if you are a black young Muslim who's willing to do something, not to depend on the charity or okay, let me not say charity, but whatever that was that was just given to you. When you are dependent. Let's get away from that. There are such networks. If you have a skill, if you have yonke leyo nto leyo. So I think such networks zizosiza in terms of that.
That was the concept behind the SABMC. We would see networking across our talents and gifts. You understand? Doctors, whatever profession that you are part of this particular thing. Then say network as abantu abamnyama. We basically look out for one another in the true sense of the word, but with the structure like everybody else.
Yeah.
As I'm saying, the Somalis are structured. There's a leader. There's an Amir. Amir Sheikh. He's the leader of the Somalis in the country. You understand? He's the leader of the Somalis in South Africa.
That's why Miss Kuruma in our mosque abanandaba.
You understand? They wouldn't. Why should they care? They are structured, these guys.
But they have their own structure.
They are structured. There's nothing stopping black Muslims in the country from being structured too. Along those lines, business, because we need to start looking. That's why I'm saying, we need to now into a charity that I have an issue with. Charity is supposed to uplift you, not create a perpetual beggar. Because what is happening in the country right now, perpetual beggars are being created. Perpetual beggars are being created. You are saying, I know, your food is coming. I'm supposed to teach you how to take care of yourself.
And this is what the Prophet taught. Don't have something I'm cutting Latin.
But the thing is,
Cancel.
the Prophet created avenues for people to be able to take care of themselves. He didn't create perpetual beggars. We cannot say we follow the Prophet ﷺ, but then we create perpetual beggars. Whereas he didn't. And then we say we follow him.
No, but maybe it's because of their own agendas. Maybe they want to, I don't know,
understand?
control whatever, you know.
As I'm saying, that's the issue I have with charity. Charity shouldn't create perpetual beggars. It should create people who can take care of themselves. It should create people who are able to take care of their own masajid. As it is the norm everywhere else. You understand? But if we are perpetual beggars, how are we going to contribute to our general upkeep as black Muslims? More so, how do we give dawah?
But I think when Sheikh Lento joining such shuras. I think charity begins at home. It has to start in our masajid.
It has to start in our
The
mosques.
unity has to start there. Doing things together has to start there. You can't just go to a bigger organization. Okay, in a small organization, how are things being done?
I mean, a practical example, you know, I admire Soweto for that. Every year, baya kollega, imali yaphuma for years, for the Eid. Baya kollega, imali phuma from amongst themselves. Lapana udla usutu uzothatha nesikhaftini. You understand? And this is guys from their own pockets. No, seriously. And there's nothing stopping us from doing that. Okay, alhamdulillah, other communities are beginning to do that. But this thing should be a normal way of life.
When are we doing that, Kagiso? Tina, we were willing.
No, we have been doing it, Tine Kagiso. Since the arrival of the new Imam, we've been doing it. Like I'm saying, for the first time since he came, we're eating spinach for Eid. There was no biryani. We got rid of it. We said, no, we can take care of ourselves. We can cook for ourselves. Akologeni mali phumi.
Ayiphumi imali bafowethu ayiphumi imali ngelokuphokotela nithenga into useless.
And there's so much baraka in eating from your own pocket. There's so much baraka in there. There's so much blessings. That's why I'm saying we need to deal with the situation whereby even if umuntu knows I can't do stuff for themselves, but they still expect food parcels. I have an issue with that. Hence, my understanding is let those who are truly indigent, truly in need, they're masakin, truly in need, must get those parcels. But if when you ask Tesha or Grand, when's a food parcel?
Yeah.
When's a guy?
Considering as podcast, anything before Sivala?
No, brother, I'm sure you can speak.
Anything last words, Chef? Something coming up, something you should be aware of?
No, I don't know. I think I spoke about the bill, the marriage bill, that people need to read through it and understand it and perhaps contribute because there's nothing stopping anybody from giving their own input into that marriage bill. Secondly, as I reiterated again, that we need to network as Black Muslims much more. Alhamdulillah, at least the sisters, there's a group of ladies called Muslimas on Call. I hope I'm saying it right. I know one of the leaders is a lady whom is a good friend. They had this Eid celebration in the park whereby they invited people to come and eat together and so forth. And it was such a beautiful experience, you understand? And it is a beginning that whereby people are beginning to understand what is acting as Black Muslims, you understand? So we need to support such initiatives like our Muslim on Call, whereby Black Muslims come together and be together as themselves, you understand? But more importantly, as I said, networking is very important. It is everything. We can never build ourselves as a community if we don't network.
Yeah, I think being any last words, I think what Sheikh is saying here is very important for us. I think as Black Muslims, I think a lot of people who were Muslims, if I can put it like that, maybe they sort of maybe left their religion because of they saw there's no unity. I don't feel at home. Yes, I don't have people that I can connect with because of people abahlangani. You are not unified. Yeah, well, so I think that also can contribute to the growth of Islam as a whole. And
Definitely.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, mbonga Sheikh Sdwesh for coming. Users, I want to from Spanish. This Spanish ngidila nama customers isikhathini esiningi research so siba yize ama user or ama clients or ama customer. So considering as podcast, there has to be a part 2 early. I feel like there are a lot of things that say shile.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, considering as podcast, see you on the next. Please like and subscribe before call. And subscribe in Pegamahal.